them here and their statuses are both okay. If the statuses are not okay, then you probably entered the wrong IP address or there's something else going on in your network. I leave that up to you. Next, to set up the buttons. Go to the buttons page, and here's all the blank buttons that I can work with. I'll go to the first one here. From set button type, I'll choose regular button, and then I'll give it a name. I'm going to give it the name of simply 1, because the goal here is to set up a simple, clean interface that looks similar to this, but is numbered 1 through 7 and actually switches these as 1 through 7. So here we go. This is button 1. I'll go to add key down on action. I'll type in ISO to start. That just brings up only the ISO commands. And the one that I want is at the very top, set input on program. I want to set the input on program to camera 1, so that's there by default. If I tap on this though, you'll see that I can choose between camera 1, 2, 3, and wait a minute, what's that? ATEM 4 through 7. Well, when you first set up your ATEM, you may have noticed that the cameras were called camera 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's it. But you can actually rename them, and I've already done that. I've renamed button number 4 to be ATEM 4 through 7. And then I've also renamed the buttons on the ATEM Mini, where number 1 is input 4, number 2 is camera 5, and so on and so on. Let me show you how I did that. Over to the ATEM software, I'll click on the actual ATEM software control, and here you can see camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, and then 4 to 7. If you click on the gear menu down in the bottom left, and then tap on labels and input, you'll see the names. There's camera 1, camera 2, and so on, and then this is the one that I renamed, ATEM 4 through 7, and a label just 4-7. So that's what I made there. And then if I switch over to the other switcher by going to the connection menu, choosing the older ATEM Mini, you'll see here that these are already labeled as cam 4, 5, 6, and 7. And once again, under the gear menu, you can see the labels under input are camera 4, 5, 6, and 7. You can, of course, call these anything you want. Overhead camera, close-up, computer, whatever you like in there. I've just named them cameras 1 through 7 just to make it easy for this. I'll save that and go back over to the companion menu. So once again, we were just setting up button 1. So there's button 1 set for camera 1. Now let's just test it out. There's a button up here called Test Actions, but first let me make sure I'm off of input 1. So there's 1, I'm on 4, so we're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and click on Test Actions, and it immediately sets that to input 1. So this works. Now we just need to replicate this for all the other buttons. To do that, go to the Copy option, select the button you want to copy, that's number 1, and then click where you want to paste it, right there. I'll select that, change this to number 2, and then change the input to camera 2 as well. And I'll just repeat that for the rest of these. Let's switch this to 3. I'll copy that over, call that 3, set that to 3, and then we'll copy again, tap on that, make this 4, and now we're going to set this input to ATEM 4 through 7, and now I need to also add a command to switch the second ATEM to input number 1, which is my camera 4. This is where Companion shines. I can add multiple commands to be executed at the same time so that I can have the ATEM Mini Pro ISO switch to input 4 and the old ATEM Mini switch to input 1 together. To do that, I'll simply go in and add another action. I'll type in Mini this time to filter by just the Mini, set input on program, and now that one is set to camera 4. So now the command is going to both switch the ATEM ISO to the 4th input that I've labeled as ATEM 4 through 7 and the old Mini over to camera 4. Now let's do this for 5, 6, and 7. Copy number 4 to 5, rename that 5, and set the input to camera 5. The switch over to ATEM 4 through 7 is already built into it. Copy 5 to here, select that, and 6, set this to camera 6, and finally copy 6 to 7, select that, we'll call it 7, and switch this to camera 7 as well. Now we're ready to test it. To test these, I can click on the Test Actions button on each interface, but there's actually an easier way to do it. If I hold down the Shift key, then this interface here becomes live buttons. So now as I click on each one of these, you'll see the inputs changing. So there's input 1, 2, 3, and then 4 brings up 4 on the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, and number 1 on the ATEM Mini. And then there's 5, 6, and 7. And I can switch around these as much as I want. I can jump to 2, jump to 5, jump to 1, jump to 4, and all the inputs change simultaneously. And that's all there is to it. Now, who wants to actually do the switching by holding down the Shift key and clicking on a web page button? Nobody. So instead, we can actually move this interface over to the iPad. And there's a custom view to do this to make it even easier. On the left-hand side of the page here, you'll see there's two options. There's the Web Buttons option that gives you a nice web-friendly view. Or there's also the mobile buttons option, which